everyone. Mike Vogel here for Break the Ice. Welcome to, I guess, another season of Break the Ice. We kind of consider the July area to be the beginning of a new season, and we're only 48 hours removed from the dust settling at the 2023 NHL Draft in Nashville, Tennessee. So we're joined, as always, at this time of year for as long as I can remember, as long as we've been doing these sorts of things, which is a couple of decades now, and we're joined by Ross Mahoney, Caps Assistant General Manager and longtime draft guru, and Ross just got done conducting his 26th NHL Draft in Nashville. He is the Dean of NHL Draft Conductors. So, Ross, thanks as always. We always appreciate having you on here to run down the list of the newest Capitals, and we'll spend a little time maybe clearing up some questions that I have and that I assume some of you may have as well on some of the players who are already in the system. Certainly it was a different draft for you guys this year. First time in 16 years that you're pulling a player from the top 10. And there was a lot of intrigue there after Connor Bedard went to the Hawks at number 1. With your 8th overall pick, you managed to get Ryan Leonard from the U.S. Development Team program, and he sounds like quite a package, quite a prospect. And you know, this was a year in which, if there's going to be one year where you do fall a little short during the regular season and manage to get a top 10 pick, this seemed like the year to do it. And I know he was a guy that you guys had sort of honed in on and hoped he would be there when you were picking there at number 8. What can you tell us about him? He's a right wing, and he seems like a really well-rounded forward. I saw someone who actually described him as perhaps the most well-rounded forward of all the players drafted. That would include one Connor Bedard.
Yeah, you know, it's to begin with, I guess the each draft is kind of different, and this year was really interesting in the sense that I think everybody was said that Connor Bedard was going to be the number 1 pick, and then we really weren't sure, you know, who would go 2 or 3, at least not what order. And in all honesty, I didn't think, you know, our pick would be there when we picked. I really thought there was a chance he was going to go more 5, 6, 7. Yeah. You know, when we were picking 8, I think, you know, I was a bit surprised, but it was a great surprise because this young fella has a real, he can really shoot the puck. I mean, he scores goals. It was very evident in the under-18 USA developmental team. You know, I mean, not that shy of a goal a game. You know, I think he had 51 goals in 56 games, something in that area. I mean, the under-18 World Championships, more than a goal a game. You know, he had almost a goal a game last year in the under-18 World Championships as a 16-year-old. So he's got he could skate. He's got the shot for sure. He can make plays, but he plays with an honest game. He's not afraid to take the puck to the net, not afraid to finish his checks. You know, so I think that kind of sets him apart from some of the other players that were in this year's draft. Was not just the skill level and the sense, but the physicality also.
Kind of a neat little note, too, that he's the first American player you guys have chosen in the first round since John Carlson in 2008. And, of course, Carly has the prestige of scoring a gold medal game-winning overtime goal in the under-20 World Juniors. Leonard has that same distinction, albeit at a lower level, the under-18s in World Juniors and doing it against Sweden, but still kind of a neat little connection between those two guys. Obviously, Carlson did it after his draft, Leonard before. And the first American-born forward taken in the first round by the Capitals since before your time here in Washington. That would have been Pat Peake, a guy whose career was sadly and unfortunately cut short by a couple of really gnarly injuries. So let's move on to the second pick, and then I want to ask you a question that sort of dovetails into both of these two guys, because you know, Andrew Cristall, I think a lot of people thought he would go in the first round. He was ranked pretty highly by a number of the scouting reports that we typically read at this time of year. A left wing from Kelowna, I believe, the Western League, and a guy who, again, a goal scorer. This is these are two top six wingers that you've picked up here, top six potential for sure in Leonard and Cristall. Cristall, a left wing, Leonard a right wing, and everything you hear about Cristall is that he sort of plays with the puck like it's on a yo-yo. There's so many things when I look at him and I listen to him talk, and he's a pretty effervescent kid, and then he's got these puck dangling skills. I mean, I think TJ Oshie in my head, just in the way that you watch Osh during warm-ups and the funky little things he likes to do, and asking Cristall about how he came about it. He says, yeah, just in the backyard, and just nonstop shooting pucks and playing around with pucks and stuff, and it all those reps, 10,000 hours to the Malcolm Gladwell theory, and here he is.
Yeah, no, really happy to get Andrew. I mean, his hands and his sense they're ridiculous. I mean, and I love how unselfish he is. I mean, if I was on his team, I'd love to be playing on his line, because I know he'd find me and be able to, enable you to score some easy goals. Yeah, the hockey sense, the vision. As you said, the puck is kind of glued to his stick. Really, really tricky, really sneaky with the puck. But and like I said, the unselfishness is awesome.
That sounds like he's pretty good friends with Connor Bedard. I think Matthew Wood and Zach Benson, they kind of run in a group together. That's a whole lot of first round talent from this year.
Yeah, no, I think they all played growing up together in some of those kind of elite teams when they were younger. And I think Connor Bedard had given Andrew a lot of credit too for being one of the smartest players he's ever played with or played against, and that's pretty high praise from a former teammate.
I heard that as well, and I agree. Now, going back to the 2019 draft in Vancouver, over that period of time, Connor McMichael, Hendrix Lapierre, Ivan Miroshnichenko, now Ryan Leonard, and Andrew Cristall. That's a lot of potentially top 6, top 9 forward talent added into the organization over a span of 5 years. And how do you feel like? I feel like you guys have really done a good job of replenishing what had been probably at the beginning of that 5-year stretch a little bit of a lack of real high-end talent that was in the organization. And understandably so, because there were so many drafts where you guys only had 3 or 4 picks, sometimes didn't have a pick until the 4th round, often didn't have a pick in the 1st round, or if you did have one, you're picking in the late 20s, and even where everyone wants to pick the last pick in the 1st round back in 2018.
It's, when you're making a run for the Stanley Cup, your currency is young players and draft picks. You're not taking anything out of your lineup, so yeah, we went through some years where we didn't have as many picks, or you have a really good team and you're picking 26, 28, 32. That says a lot. So it was interesting to again pick in the top 10, as you said earlier, that we hadn't done that for a long, long time. But yeah, I think the young group of forwards we're assembling are there's a lot of them have a chance to be top 6 forwards. I mean, to watch guys like Miroshnichenko and Leonard shoot the puck, they can really let it go. And Lapierre and Cristall, not that they shoot well also, but they're excellent playmakers with really good vision, both, really unselfish. And Connor McMichael kind of does both. He's able to score and he moves the puck well also. So, I think the future looks pretty good as far as having some players that have the ability to be in the top 6.
And you've got all 3 of those positions, the forward positions within that group, and pretty, some diversity too. There's some speed. There's a lot of skill, but some speed, a little bit of edge there too. It seems like a diverse group. They're not all, similar exact prototypes of one another as well.
Yeah, no, we've got left-handed shots, right-handed shots, left wingers, right wingers, centers. We've got some that can play the wing and centers, so there is some diversity there for sure, without a doubt.
And then you guys did not have a pick in the 3rd round this year, and in the 4th round at 104 overall, pulled Patrick Thomas, a second-year eligible kid from Hamilton of the OHL, Hamilton, Brantford, I guess. And he, I guess, given his age, I think he's an August birthday, could have one more year in the Ontario League or 2. What what would you like to see from him this year? And I'm not sure how that roster looks for that team going forward, but how do you expect his role to possibly expand this year, and what can you tell us about him as a player?
Yeah, our scouts in Ontario, Carl Stewart, Phil Horner, and obviously Steve Bowman, our head scout, lives in that area. They were really impressed with the year he had. As you said, he went through a draft, one draft already, but they really like the sense, really like his playmaking abilities, his scoring touch. The challenge for him, as with a lot of younger players, will be to get himself stronger for sure. But I think we look forward to seeing him this year play more of a top six role on his team, try to get on the first power play and to have a real big year offensively.
And one of the reports I read that said that the line he was playing on last year, and I think one of the kids is matriculating. It may have been an overager on that line last year, and the other kid was Nick Lardis, who's one of the fastest skaters in the whole draft, who went to Chicago in the third round. But they were, I guess, one of the hottest lines in that league over the second half of the season.
Yeah, they really will. They ended up trading for Nick Lardis, got him out of Peterborough, and then I think once those kids got together and got a few games under their belt, they really developed good chemistry. I think it's going to be a real good situation for him as far as the amount of ice time he's going to get. Like I said, how high up in the lineup he'll play and the amount of power play time he's going to get.
I'm really intrigued by the 5th round pick. That was Cam Allen at 136 overall. He's a defenseman. Cam, at this time last year, I think a lot of scouts had him going in the first round, coming off a really good rookie season at Guelph, and for whatever reason didn't get off to a good start. Things kind of spiraled on him, but it seemed like in our conversations with him after he was drafted, seemed to take responsibility for not having the season that he wanted, and said he was putting too much pressure on himself, and happy to have the draft behind him, happy to finally hear his name called, happy to come to Washington. What can you tell us? What did you see in the way of his freshman year at Guelph versus the season that just had, and what does it maybe point out about how important that aspect of the game is? Something that I think every player has to deal with, and maybe it's a little harder to deal with when you're an 18-year-old kid.
Yeah, and I think as you said, his underage year as a 16-year-old, he had a really good year, and probably showed even more offense as an underage. It looked like good skill, moved the puck really well. Now, when you're 16, the expectations are not the same that you probably put on yourself as compared to your draft year. And then he started off the summer really well. He was captain for Canada's under-18 team, so you're looking at the best 20-year-olds in the country, and he was the captain. They end up winning the gold medal in the Linka tournament. He played big minutes there. Really competitive guy, skates well, works hard. And then the season started in Guelph. I think they made a coaching change quite early in the year too, and it's almost like he didn't get himself untracked a little bit, kind of. I think maybe a bit of a confidence factor also, probably. I think sometimes these young guys put a lot of pressure on themselves when it's their draft year. So happy to get him where we did, and look forward to him having a real good year this year in Guelph. Sometimes you get drafted, that's out of the way.
Yeah.
When you move on and you take a little pressure off yourself, and you get out there and have some fun and play hard, and things work out even better.
I mean, he seemed to be genuinely relieved that the whole draft, I'm sure, given the microscope in Canada that the draft brings out, that it's certainly something that he would have, wanted to get through. And I wonder, too, because, we've talked a lot the last couple of weeks, and you've been effusive in your praise for the Caps development group that's done such a good job and had a lot to do with Hershey hoisting the Calder Cup this year. But I just wonder, he seems like Cam seems like a kid who's got a handle on what he thinks the problem is, and I wonder how much he would benefit from having a little bit of face-to-face time with a guy like Brooks Orpik in that group, and he's spending some time talking to someone else about, getting his mind in a good place for each game and getting a good routine is what he talked about as being important on a game in, game out basis to get his head in a good place for each game as he goes out there.
Yeah, no, our development team, I think, is second to none. I mean, Steve Richmond, leading the way as the director of it, and obviously with Ole Kolzig and Jim Slater, and then Brooks being a defenseman, and I think he'll be able to help our young draft pick so much with not just on the ice but also off the ice, like you said, with maybe sometimes keeping things simple, and just getting out there and working hard but having fun, enjoying the game, and like I said, good things will happen. But all of our young defensemen are in a really good spot, being able to have not just such a good former player, Brooks Orpik, Stanley Cup winner, but Brooks Orpik, the person too.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, huge, like an unbelievable character guy, and I think it's great for a young defenseman to be able to be mentored by him.
And Steve too, a longtime pro defenseman.
Yeah, Steve played pro defense. Yeah, I mean, those guys are, and they get it. And Steve had a son who was an early second-round pick.
That's right.
Was drafted and played some in the NHL and had his career. And Steve, I think, really relates really, really well to that age group. And like I said, he's been through all those things with his own son. And so I think it's just such a good situation for our young players that we draft in all positions, not just the defensemen.
No sixth-round pick for the Caps this year, but then in the seventh round at number 200, you guys went for a third-year eligible guy, Brett Hyland from Brandon of the Western League, and he's a guy who leapt into the point-per-game realm in his season this past year, and he could theoretically step into the pros this year. What's going to be the determining factor as to whether he goes back to the W or jumps in South Carolina or Hershey, and where do you see his skills, attributes, and career arc headed?
Yeah, he's as you said, he'd been through a couple drafts. Really strong on his skates. He's put together. He's real solid, really good skater. Unfortunately, towards the end of the year, he ended up with a little bit of a knee injury. He had been over a point a game, so that kind of, I guess, hurt a little bit for him. As far as the future goes, to go back and play another year of junior hockey would be a good situation in a lot of ways, just like we did last year with Ryan Hoffer. He went back and had a great year, played big minutes, ended up getting traded, playing in the Memorial Cup. So, that's definitely an option for Brett. And some of those players, too, they played in the bubble where they only played 25 games 1 year, and they might not have even played all 25 games. So, a lot of those kids, they probably missed out on 60 games from that year. They normally play 80 or 100 games, and depending on how they do in the playoffs. So I think for a lot of those younger players, it's okay. It's a good option to be there, but you know what? It'll depend on him. It'll depend on what he does in the summer. It'll depend on how he does when he comes back to camp and what kind of impression he makes. But I think either way will be good for him.
And no real reason to rush him because you guys seem to be pretty well set at the forward position at least as far as Hershey goes this year. So
yeah, and it's like I said, it's good to go back and have a tremendous year. And usually when you go back and you're an older player, you're going to play higher up in the lineup. You get more power play opportunities, penalty killing, and I think you get a chance to
be a leader
out
too.
There and be a leader on your team, and usually it works out really well, especially probably finding your offensive game more because you get a lot more opportunities than when you're a 16 or a 17-year-old.
It's one of the other weird things about this draft was there were, for the first time since 2007, no picks on the floor at all in the first round. Now, obviously, first-round picks get exchanged going, before the draft and all that, but not until sometime after you made your second-round pick at number 40 did the first on-the-floor pick, or a trade, I should say, happen, which I thought was bizarre and surprising to me for sure. But you guys did pull off a deal late in the draft, which I thought was pretty interesting. You guys take Brett Hyland at 200, and we're kind of putting our pencils away and everything, and it was like, oh no, hold on, it seems like we're gonna make a little move here, and so you flip the 2025 seventh rounder to San Jose for the Sharks, seventh rounder this year, and that's pick 206, which to me is always, I think, an interesting pick. I think that's the Henrik Lundqvist pick, if I'm not mistaken. 204, 206, it's somewhere in there. And you took a goaltender from France, a guy named Antoine Keller, who's, I guess, playing in the, is it the Swiss, the Underleague, or is he in the actual...
He was in the Swiss Junior League.
Okay,
the top junior league, yeah. So, yeah, Antoine was... he came on our radar a year before, playing with the French, national team, junior team, and thought he played really well in the championships. And then we had an opportunity to see him again playing in this year's World Junior, like not the top pool, but the next pool. And again, he played well. And then we tracked him even more playing for Geneva, as I said, in the Swiss Junior League. But he also was spent a lot of time in the Elite League as a third goalie in practices, and so our scouts really liked him a lot, and we were like, "Hey, we like this guy. Let's make a trade. Let's get another pick, and let's take him."
So if he's a third goalie in practice, he's facing men. He's playing against true pros in that league, which is, has really evolved into a pretty good league that, during times of strife here, i.e. pandemic, labor stoppage and stuff, players from the NHL are very happy to play in that league. So that's got to be a real boon for him. And I mean, 6'3", seems like he's got a good frame. Probably still growing a little bit. How do you? I know over the years from talking to you, one of the most important things for you guys is trying to divine how an 18-year-old kid who maybe to take it to the North American level is playing in high school or is playing in a lower tier junior league, how they're going to translate to a higher level. So how do you do that with a goaltender who's playing in Europe at a lower level? How do you project him out?
Yeah, you can't get hung up with the environments that they're playing in. I mean, because sometimes they're in the elite leagues, they're playing in major junior, they could be playing in college, they could be playing high school, they could be playing USHL. It could be in Europe on a big ice surface, it could be in the smaller ice surface in North America, and it's, for us, it's like, let's just look at his attributes. He's a goaltender, how does he move? Has he got powerful movements? Does he, challenge the goalie? Has a good glove hand? What's his focus like? Does he read the game well? And, you do that. You can do that no matter where he's playing. If he was playing midget AAA or playing like elite league or junior. So we try to really concentrate on those attributes that we're marking. Like sometimes people say, "Oh, it's just high school hockey." Right, and T.J. Oshie and, Ryan McDonough and Nick Bugstad and Brock Nelson. Yeah, they all came out of just high school hockey, and they're all first-round picks, and they all end up being captains or assistant captains in the NHL. So, like I said, we won't get too hung up with the environment. We're going to evaluate the attributes, and, that's kind of the way we roll with that. And our goaltending situation is really interesting. I mean, our scouts do a good job of
clearly
picking goalies. I mean, we've had our goalie coaches over the years, including Scott Murray, kind of try to educate the guys a little bit more on what to look for. And we have one particular scout on staff, Daryl Bumgarner, who's kind of our amateur goalie guru, so to speak. So Daryl always has a look at them, and then we involve our American League coach, goalie coach, and our NHL coach Scott, and tell them kind of who we like, and we get their opinion on what they think of these young goalies. And I know they were, Scott was really happy that we had the opportunity to draft Antoine. So it really is a group process, like it is for all positions, but it seems like it almost even more.
Maybe more so with
the goalies. Yeah,
certainly sounds like it. And I loved how when we asked you about him on Thursday in Nashville, just right away before the question was even finished, you could see a grin breaking out on your face. You were clearly excited I mean, you guys gave up an asset to be able to make this pick, so it was. I mean, he'll be theoretically eligible for the draft again next year. Had you not, so this seems like something that you wanted to get done now and not risk the fact that maybe this guy makes himself a little more visible to the other 31 teams in the league. But I wonder also, like, what is an ideal trajectory for him? Would it just be to, matriculate to the Swiss Pro League and play there, and you guys watch him from afar for a few years and see how he develops? Because we see that where teams draft European goaltenders and maybe they come over when they're 25, 20. You guys have rights to European draft choices essentially in perpetuity, I think, right?
Yeah, no, for sure. And I mean, there's lots of different opportunities, I think, for him. He's got the Swiss Junior League. Who knows what he can do next year as far as playing time in the Elite League. But a lot of times there's older goalies that are going to be starting. I know he's had some interest, I think, from some NCAA schools. He's had interest for import draft. So it seems like there is a lot of interest in him. We'll get him here at camp, and we'll take a look at things and try to see which is the best way for him to go. But he's got a lot of options, I think, at the end of the day.
And you mentioned we'll get him here at camp. We should tell the folks who are listening that we're recording this actually minutes after the day one of camp, and he's not quite here yet. And that's because, I mean, he was in Spain, I'm told, when on holiday when he was drafted, and so there's been a little bit of a scramble to get him. I guess you got to get him and get his gear and get him over here. And sounds like he'll be here tomorrow, and tomorrow being Sunday, and then on the ice on Monday.
Yeah, no, it was he was in Spain, I think, at a family holiday, and then you're right, we had to get back to France, get his things, get back over here, and then he's got to go and get his medical done like all the players do. So, yeah, but it's good we got him here, and we'll be able to have a look at him and. Yeah, like I said, that's we were excited about him. It's not often we're making trades in the 7th round to get another pick.
Yeah, it's been a while since I've seen that move. Yeah. You guys are the masters of sliding up early in the 2nd round and grabbing guys, though, before the fall off there.
The run, there's always a run there after about 10 names, 12 names, and you've got a guy there that you like, you better try to step up and make a play for them.
Yeah, we've seen it a number of times. I was actually looking for you guys to do it again. But again, as we alluded to earlier, it wasn't there for anybody this year. Nobody was making those trades. So now that's your class of 23, the 6 players that the Caps brought home. And now let's roll through just a handful of guys that I wanted to ask you about who are already in the system. And since we're on the topic of goaltenders, Mitchell Gibson, 4th-round pick back in 2018, signed his entry-level contract, just a 1-year deal, though, if I'm not mistaken. He's 24 years old. I guess, number one, can you tell us why it was a 1-year deal instead of 2, which is, I think, typical of kids coming out of college? And, looking at the depth chart organizationally, I'm guessing that Clay Stevenson would slide up to be the because Zach Fucale's gone off to the KHL. I'm guessing that Clay Stevenson would have the inside track to the splitting the duties in Hershey with Hunter Shepard, and then ideally Gavin Bjorklund, who was injured most of last year, and maybe Mitchell Gibson would man the nets in South Carolina. Correct me if I'm wrong, or how do you see this sort of settling between now and September?
Yeah, I think it's up to the kids, really. Obviously, Clay had a full year of playing pro hockey, and then went up with Hershey at the end of the year. And as you said, Guerin had a injury and really missed almost all of the year. And Mitchell's just graduating out of university, but I think it'd be a really healthy competition when it comes to training camp. You got 3 young guys, and I guess we'll let them battle it out and see where they end up, where they're slotted.
And I mean, do you need to? Does Mitchell need to be in a position where, in order to keep him in the organization beyond this season, is it something where is he going to have to see a path? Do you think, or I guess what I'm asking is the fact that he signed a 1-year deal. Does it make it more likely that he'll wander after that?
No, I don't. No, I don't necessarily think that. I just think that getting him into pro hockey, like I said, and getting him playing, and I mean, he had a tremendous college career.
Yeah.
And even from where he started, I mean, we drafted him out of the North American League. Not a lot of players get drafted out in the North American League, and then kind of fought his way through the East Coast League and on to Harvard. And I mean, we thought the progression, and the progress he made has been very significant in the last few years. So I'm excited to get him into pro hockey. And like I said, I mean, where he ends up, that's up to him. And that'll be decided by the coaches, but I'm really excited for him to see how he does.
And he got to spend an afternoon on the bench in Washington, backing up, and a little bit of time in Hershey. And I don't think he was a black ace because I think he had to go back and finish some school. But that's a good thing to do, especially when you're when you're trying to finish school at Harvard. Next guy I wanted to ask you about is the fifth rounder from 2021, Hyland, who has had a tough go of it. The 2 years that he's been in the Quebec League there since you guys drafted him, I think just a total of 50 games. What's the year ahead look like for him?
Stay healthy and play some games. It was unfortunate he had the shoulder injury, and then he kind of got dinged up again. So he just needs to play, And I think if he gets a good season, gets lots of games in, it'll be good for him, and good for us to help in his evaluation. It's sometimes those injuries happen, and they're unfortunate. I mean, look at Riley Sutter. Riley had a real tough go first couple of years of pro. It's just like he got injured and just start to get healthy, to get injured again, and then I watched this year where I know Riley had a really good summer of training, and watching Hershey play during the year and then catching him again in the playoffs, I was like, wow. I mean, he really started to look like the guy that we drafted. He was winning face-offs. He was hard on pucks, big body. So sometimes those injuries come in bunches too, and it's frustrating for the player, but that's the way it is. You deal with that adversity and get yourself healthy and work hard in the gym, and look what happened to Riley Sutter. And I was Calder Cup champion too.
Yeah, and he was excellent throughout that series, and Hanel, similar to Hyland, easy to have him play that overage year, given there's no lack of forward depth right now at the Hershey level for sure. Brent Johnson drafted in 2021 as well, a defenseman taken in the third round, and it seemed like I think he may have been nicked up a little bit as well, but didn't get a lot of games in those 2 seasons at UND, and it looks like he's moving south a little bit to Ohio State for his junior season. I haven't talked to him. Was that is that a decision that you think is going to put him into a better role and a better position to showcase what he can do here in the season ahead? Yeah,
I think so. I mean, he had the injury. I guess in hindsight, you probably look back and maybe another year in the USHL might have been good for him, but North Dakota wanted him, to come in and be there right away, and then probably lost a little bit of confidence along the ways, and then you're kind of in and out of the lineup, and so I think this will be good for him. It'll be a fresh start, kind of a reset for him, and I think he'll end up playing a lot more and getting good ice time, and we'll see how he does.
And all these kids that we're talking about too, they also had to play through the pandemic, during a major critical part of their development as well, which again, completely out of their control. And then the last guy I want to ask you about is the guy that you pulled in the third round last year at number 70 overall, Suzdalev, who played on Connor Bedard's team out west there, and had a really good season in his first season in the Western League. And to me, the intriguing thing is that he was not drafted out of the Western League. He was drafted from his team in the Swedish League. So he's not bound by that agreement between the NHL and the Canadian junior leagues that he can't play pro until his age 20 season. This kid, theoretically, if he's up to it, if you guys think he's ready for it, he can turn pro at the age of 19 this fall, if I'm not mistaken.
No, that's correct. It was kind of similar to John Carlson, too. I mean, John wasn't drafted out of Europe.
Right.
John was taken out of the USHL, and if he get drafted out of the USHL, even though John went and played in the Ontario League the next year, he was still able to play as a 19-year-old in the American League, which he did. Same year that he scored that overtime goal for the U.S., and then, I think he might have even won the Calder Cup also. Or it might have been the year after, but he was there.
No, he won the Calder that year, and he scored a pretty big goal in the Stanley Cup playoffs for the Caps, his first playoff goal that year. It was a pretty busy 90-some games for him that year. So
Alex, he's got options for sure. He can play in the American Hockey League, even though he's a 19-year-old. He can play back in Regina, with the Pats. I mean, there's always, his team in Europe. Really good year in Regina. I think he had 80-some points, and I think a lot of people, he played with Conberdard. Not 5-on-5. That's my hometown. I saw a few games there, and they would play 5-on-5 together if it was later in a game and they were down by a goal. But for the most part, they played on different lines, 5-on-5. I think the theory there, talking to the Regina people, is they were trying to spread the scoring out over two lines instead of loading it up on one line. And then they obviously played together
on the power play.
Did really well. And then when Connor was gone too at the World Junior, Alexander played really well. As far as in those 5 or 6 games when Bedard was gone. So great experience for him, playing on a small ice, probably playing more of a North American style of game where you need to attack more instead of, delaying and regrouping. And so I think that was really, really good for him. And a good summer of training will really help probably determine where he ends up. When we draft him, he was slight.
Sure.
And so, the American Hockey League it's a fantastic league, and it's some big, strong, adults playing in that league. So we'll see how he does when he at this camp. We'll see how he does after he does his training in the off season, and make that decision comes the end of September.
So he could play obviously in the Western League. He could play pro North America. He could even go back to Sweden or somewhere in Europe, but given what you said and how well he adjusted to the North American game, it makes more sense to keep him on this side of the pond.
Yeah, he'll play someplace in North America for sure.
Great.
Yeah.
Well, as always, Ross, I can't thank you enough for all your time. You're so gracious with us, and this is our third time talking on the record in the last 10 days. It's one of my favorite times of the year, and always appreciate your insight and your willingness to share it with the rest of us.
Well, your knowledge and your background work you do makes this really easy. It really does. So it's compliment to you for being so well prepared.
I appreciate that, and I'll put the check in the mail. Thanks to Ross Mahoney as always, and we'll see you next time on the next edition of Break the Ice.